Rome called her dangerous, a temptress, a threat. But Cleopatra was far more than that. She was a brilliant ruler, a strategist, and one of the most powerful women of the ancient world. So why did history remember her this way? Was she truly a manipulator, or a queen fighting to save her empire? Let's turn back the clock and uncover the truth behind Cleopatra. But to understand the truth about Cleopatra, we have to go back to the beginning, to a royal family filled with power, ambition, and deadly betrayal. Because Cleopatra wasn't born into a stable kingdom. She was born into a world where family members fought for the throne, and survival meant outsmarting everyone around you. Because Cleopatra wasn't just born into royalty, she was born into danger. Cleopatra was born in Alexandria in 69 BCE, the cultural heart of the ancient world. She belonged to the final ruling family of Egypt, the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Macedonian Greek line that had governed the country for nearly 300 years, since the time of Alexander the Great. Her father was Ptolemy XII, or Letes, often called the flute player. The identity of her mother remains uncertain. Cleopatra had two younger brothers, Ptolemy XIII and Ptolemy XIV, both of whom would later rule alongside her. She also had an older sister, Berenice IV, and a younger sister, Arsinoe IV. Though their mothers are not clearly known, all of the children were considered legitimate heirs to the throne. But in this royal family, power was never shared peacefully. Cleopatra was not just a queen, she was a scholar. Her education was remarkable for her time. She received a comprehensive Hellenistic education, studying rhetoric, mathematics, philosophy, astronomy, and medicine, likely at or near the great library of Alexandria. She became fluent in at least 9 languages, and was the first of her dynasty to learn the Egyptian language, allowing her to speak directly to her people. Despite her Greek heritage, Cleopatra embraced Egyptian traditions. She presented herself not only as a ruler, but as a traditional pharaoh and even as a living goddess, to gain the trust and loyalty of her subjects. Her education gave her a powerful advantage. She developed the intelligence, discipline, and strategic thinking needed to rule a nation and navigate complex alliances, especially with Rome. But Cleopatra's early life was not without instability. As a young woman, she experienced exile more than once. Around 57 BCE, she accompanied her father, Ptolemy XII, when he was forced to flee Egypt and seek support in Rome. These experiences would shape her, teaching her that power was fragile and survival required more than intelligence alone. Cleopatra's path to power began with a fragile and troubled kingdom. Her father, Ptolemy XII or Letes, ruled with the support of Rome, but at a heavy cost. Known for his extravagant lifestyle, he relied on enormous loans from Roman bankers, including the powerful Gaius Rabirius Posthumus, to secure his throne and maintain favour with Roman leaders like Julius Caesar and Pompey. To repay these debts, he placed crushing taxes on the people of Egypt, leaving the country in financial distress. This was the kingdom Cleopatra would inherit. When Ptolemy XII died in 51 BCE, he left the throne to his daughter Cleopatra VII and her younger brother Ptolemy XIII, naming them co-rulers. Cleopatra was just 18 years old. Her brother was only 10. According to Ptolemaic tradition, the two were expected to marry, an arrangement designed to preserve royal bloodlines and maintain control within the dynasty. But this was no ordinary partnership. Cleopatra had inherited not only a crown, but a kingdom in crisis, and a throne that would soon be contested. She had inherited a crown, but keeping it would be another matter entirely. Despite their father's will ordering them to co-rule Egypt, tension between Cleopatra and her brother began almost immediately. Ptolemy XIII was only a child, and real power rested in the hands of his advisors, men who had no intention of sharing authority. To them, Cleopatra was a threat, older, experienced, and determined to rule in her own right. They moved quickly to undermine her. Within a short time, Cleopatra was forced from power, driven into exile and pushed out of Egypt. But Cleopatra had no intention of surrendering her throne. She fled to the Roman province of Syria, where she spent the next year gathering support. There, she raised a mercenary army, and prepared to fight her way back. By 48 BCE, Cleopatra stood at Egypt's border once more, ready to face her brother's forces and reclaim what was hers. Cleopatra's Egypt relied on Rome for stability, and because of this, she knew of the actions of several prominent Roman figures, like Julius Caesar, who was well known to the Egyptian court. Interesting fact: mercenary armies. Mercenary armies were the backbone of Cleopatra's military, following a long-standing Hellenistic tradition of relying on foreign professional soldiers rather than native Egyptian forces. These troops were highly trained, mobile, and drawn from across the Mediterranean. They fought for pay, land, or loot, not patriotism, and were ready for battle far more quickly than traditional citizen armies. Cleopatra herself hired a mercenary force in 48 BCE to challenge her brother, Ptolemy XIII. Beyond warfare, mercenaries also served as city police in places like Alexandria and as guards for the royal family, helping maintain control and suppress unrest. However, their loyalty came at a price. If not paid, mercenaries could abandon their employer or even turn against them. As Cleopatra prepared to reclaim her throne, a powerful new force arrived in Egypt: Julius Caesar. Drawn into the conflict between Cleopatra and her brother, Caesar sided with the young queen. Together, they faced the forces of Ptolemy XIII in what became known as the Battle of Alexandria. In 47 BCE, the struggle came to a dramatic end. Ptolemy XIII, just 15 years old, attempted to flee across the Nile, but his ship capsized and he drowned. With her rival gone, Cleopatra was restored to power. She resumed her rule as co-regent, this time with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV. When Caesar first met Cleopatra, he was 52 years old, she was just 21. Their alliance quickly became more than political. Cleopatra proved to be an intelligent and captivating partner, someone Caesar respected as much as he admired. During this time, Cleopatra gave birth to a son, Ptolemy XV, better known as Caesarion, or Little Caesar. Their relationship, both strategic and romantic, included a famous journey along the Nile, an image that would become part of her legend. Later, Cleopatra travelled to Rome, where she stayed in Caesar's villa. Though Caesar was already married to Calpurnia, he openly acknowledged Cleopatra and her presence, further strengthening her position on the world stage. She remained the Queen of Egypt during this time, after regaining the throne with Roman military assistance. Interesting fact: the calendar, Cleopatra VII, who ruled from 51 to 30 BC, used a highly advanced 365-day solar calendar in her daily life in Egypt. This calendar was so efficient that she introduced it to Julius Caesar, forming the basis for the Julian calendar, which is the direct ancestor of our modern calendar. With Caesar at her side, Cleopatra had secured her throne, but her fate was now tied to the most powerful man in Rome. On March 15th, 44 BCE, Julius Caesar was assassinated. With his death, Cleopatra lost her most powerful ally. She fled back to Egypt with her son, determined to hold on to the throne they now ruled together. Interesting fact: why was Julius Caesar assassinated? Julius Caesar was assassinated because many Roman senators feared his growing power. His authority, leadership style, and increasingly king-like behavior led them to believe he intended to end the Roman Republic, something deeply opposed to Roman tradition. By early 44 BCE, many saw him as a tyrant. Ironically, his assassination had the opposite effect. Instead of saving the Republic, it accelerated its collapse, triggering a series of civil wars that ultimately led to the rise of his heir, Augustus, as the first emperor of Rome. Cleopatra's next great alliance would change the course of her life and her legacy. In 41 BCE, she met Mark Antony in Tarsus, in what is now modern-day Turkey. Though they had crossed paths years earlier, this would be the beginning of their powerful political and romantic partnership. Antony was 41, Cleopatra was 29. Determined to make an unforgettable impression, Cleopatra arrived in spectacular fashion, sailing into the city beneath billowing purple sails, surrounded by luxury and display. The effect was immediate. The moment he saw her, Antony lost his head like a young man, wrote the Greek historian Appian. Cleopatra continued to dazzle him, hosting lavish feasts, displaying immense wealth, and giving away jewels and furnishings to her guests. Antony tried to match her extravagance, but even his efforts fell short. But beneath the spectacle, both had clear ambitions. Antony needed wealth to fund his military campaigns in the East. Cleopatra needed protection and recognition of her son Caesarion as the rightful heir of Julius Caesar. Their alliance was as strategic as it was romantic. In 40 BCE, while Antony was in Rome, Cleopatra gave birth to their twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. That same year, Antony married Octavia, the sister of his political ally Octavian. For a time the two were apart, but in 37 BCE they reunited in Antioch, where Antony met his children for the first time, and their relationship resumed as if nothing had changed. Together they ruled and travelled across the eastern Mediterranean, even issuing coins bearing both of their images, a bold symbol of shared power. But not all was going well. Antony's military campaigns began to falter, costing thousands of lives. Yet rather than blame his decisions, many, including the historian Plutarch, placed the blame on Cleopatra. But their alliance, built on power and passion, was about to face its greatest test. In the autumn of 34 BCE, the donations of Alexandria took place, a controversial ceremony in which Mark Antony granted Roman territories to Cleopatra and her children. Cleopatra was declared ruler over vast lands across the eastern Mediterranean, from parts of North Africa, including eastern Libya, to Egypt, Cyprus, and regions of Syria. Their children were also named rulers of various territories. This decision outraged Rome's leaders. For Octavian, it was a step too far. In 33 BCE, the uneasy alliance between Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus collapsed. The following year, Antony divorced Octavia, Octavian's sister, ending any remaining ties between them. Soon after, Octavian declared war, not just on Antony, but on Cleopatra. The conflict that followed, known as the Final War of the Roman Republic, lasted from 32 to 30 BCE. Its decisive moment came on September 2, 31 BCE, at the Battle of Actium. In this naval confrontation, Octavian's forces defeated the fleet of Antony and Cleopatra, shifting the balance of power and paving the way for the rise of the Roman Empire. Defeat was devastating. Interesting fact. Why did Mark Antony lose the Battle of Actium? There were several key reasons for Mark Antony's defeat at the Battle of Actium. 1. Superior leadership. Octavian's fleet was commanded by the highly skilled general Marcus Agrippa, whose strategy proved decisive. 2. Ship design. Antony's ships were large and heavily built, making them slower and less maneuverable. Octavian's smaller vessels were faster and more agile. 3. Supply lines cut off. Agrippa successfully disrupted Antony's supply routes, leading to low morale, disease, and desertion among his forces. 4. Cleopatra's withdrawal. During the battle, Cleopatra's fleet retreated. Antony followed her, abandoning the fight and leaving his forces leaderless. 5. Final collapse. After the defeat, Antony's remaining land forces surrendered. He and Cleopatra fled to Egypt. Result: Octavian emerged in complete control, paving the way for the rise of the Roman Empire. On August 1, 30 BCE, Mark Antony took his own life after receiving false news that Cleopatra had died. At the same time, Cleopatra may have been secretly negotiating with Octavian, unbeknownst to Antony. Ever the strategist, she likely understood that Antony was doomed, but hoped to secure a future for her children. According to Plutarch, when Antony heard of her supposed death, he spoke these final words: "O Cleopatra, I am not distressed to have lost you, for I shall soon join you, but I am grieved that a commander as great as I should be found inferior to a woman in courage." But Cleopatra's story was not over, and her final decision would become legend. After his attempted suicide, a devastated Cleopatra had Mark Antony brought to her. Realizing the cost of their struggle, she was heartbroken, but still resolute. Antony died in her arms. In the days that followed, Cleopatra attempted to negotiate with Octavian, hoping to secure a future for herself and her children, but the outcome was already decided. With no path forward, Cleopatra chose her own fate. She smuggled poison, according to some accounts delivered by an asp, past Octavian's guards and took her own life. When Octavian realized what had happened, he ordered his soldiers to break into her chamber. There they found Cleopatra dead, with her loyal attendants, Charmian and Iris, near death at her side. With Cleopatra's death, Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire. Her son, Caesarion, was captured and killed. Her other children, Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus, were taken to Rome and raised by Octavia. Octavian, now victorious, worked to erase the legacy of Antony and Cleopatra, but he made one final concession. Honoring her last request, he allowed Cleopatra to be buried beside Antony. And even now, her final resting place remains lost, one of archaeology's greatest unsolved mysteries. Some say Cleopatra did everything right, except one thing. She chose the wrong side of history. But perhaps there was no winning side at all, because in the end, even the most powerful queen could not stand against Rome. If this story inspired you, join us as we continue uncovering the lives of women who changed the world. Subscribe to Heroines of History and keep the light of history alive. And let us know in the comments who your favorite heroine is. Bye for now.